Welcome to another episode of Back to the Future, and today it's my great joy to welcome the Reverend Krista Fregoso. Most of you will remember her because it seemed like she left yesterday at St. John's to take the position of Rector at St. Paul's Walnut Creek. It's so good to talk to you, Krista.
So glad to be here. It feels like we've been in this blip. That's what we're calling it now, the blip. And yeah, it was right before the blip I left. Now we're in the middle of the blip.
Well, I will tell you how that blipping made me feel. No. um, anyway, so the way we've been doing these interviews, which has really been a joy, has been sort of to talk a little bit about the past before we move into the future. And I'm just curious about some of the memories you might have of St. John's, or what sticks out in your mind.
Well, Flaming Bibles come immediately to mind. How you were on sabbatical and I called you, I think you said precisely once, but I seem to remember a few more times than that. But to ask you, where was the Flaming Bible? Because that was key to my ministry. And it was nowhere to be found. And I was presented with the Flaming Bible upon your return. And what joy it was to stand next to John Cater in particular when he received this Flaming Bible, and to have three flames in a row, yours, mine, and John Cater's. That's a fond memory. And something also about stilts. How, we decided one year we would make it really super exciting to have both of us on stilts, and I ordered stilts, and I'm a klutz, so this was not something that was going to be easy for me, and I ordered them on Amazon, and at the very bottom of the Amazon page it says also bought crutches, ace bandages.
Yeah, that's great. And for those of you who are tuning in who may not know anything about these stories, St. John's at our annual meeting have traditionally now had the priests on stilts to give a children's sermon about differences between being small and large, and how God fits into all of that. So Krista was very courageous to join the ranks of that. That was not part of the job description, but it is our version of high church.
It is. I just remember great laughter and a strong community.
Yeah. Well, tell us how you've been coping at St. Paul's Walnut Creek.
We're still standing. We're still around. We broadcast live right here from this very room, this very angle. As a matter of fact, the Flower Guild provided some flowers for this Sunday because they were tired of seeing a white wall in the background. So that's been really great. You might notice that it's just brought together a closely connected community even more together in some ways. And we've worked really hard to make sure that everybody's connected. What can I say? It's been an interesting endeavor. It's been kind of fun, to be honest with you, in the sense of being able to play with this new medium. That's been a lot of fun. But it's been really hard to try to, public safety alert. Contra Costa stay home order extends through May 1st.
Well, we're back to the future again.
Back to the future. Here we are again. We've doing the best we can. We have this new building that just opened up, and we were thankfully able to welcome in new residents next door. Mm-hmm. As for those who don't know, we built some affordable housing units on our property, and just right before the blip, we welcomed in new neighbors, and they're doing really well, and it's been nice to be able to support the community in that way. Trinity Center, our homeless ministry, should be moving back in another week or so. And so we're looking forward to that. But we're trucking along. What can I say?
Yeah, how is the homeless situation has been so intensified now because of the spread of the virus, and how have they been coping? That new the Trinity Center been coping with that?
They seem to be doing really well. in the middle of all this, Contra Costa had another shelter who had to close their building because it needed renovations. It's basically so bad it was on the verge of being condemned, and so they had to close that. So Trinity Center has been picking up the slack of so they've been hosting, when they usually host something like 50 people, they've been hosting a lot more than that. Contra Costa's done a great job of trying to find housing, temporary housing for all the homeless people, but you know, that's been an ongoing struggle, as it is, I imagine, in Alameda County too. And the whole closures have caused delays on our project to get them on the first floor. So the building's almost open for them, but the home inspectors are way behind schedule, and we've had a lot of red tape. So it's been a frustrating bit, but they've been doing really well. Making do, that's kind of how they do. That's kind of how St. Paul's does, is we make do. We're just going to figure this out. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, moving forward, you know, I think there's a lot of us who are seeing that we're never really going to go back. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think that's not a bad thing. I think there are opportunities to hear and listen what we're being told about our relationships and how they're structured and how they happen, and our inclusivity and what's available to people and what's not, and the conditions upon the conditions that are put upon them. You know, kind of the more obvious one is you must show up at this location at 10 a.m. or whatever to receive this. That's not happening right now. How do you see this as an opportunity? Where do you think we're going as a church?
Well, I mean, I don't know about your sermons, but my sermons are certainly shorter, because you could just see, like, we do not have a captive audience anymore, Scott. You know, it's been really good. And what it's basically done is it's really crystallized what we want to do as a church, right? Whatever we want to do is in the forefront of what we do, because nobody wants to be in front of a screen, especially if they're on their jobs all day on front of the screen for any more than an hour.
Right.
I think that's been really good for us. It's been hard, but it's been good for us. Ways I'm seeing it is like I said, my sermons are shorter to everybody's relief. All sermons across the world are shorter. You know, I think we've been missing out on a powerful medium. We can use visuals in a way that we've never done before. Mm-hmm. I also am seeing connections with old parishioners and children of parishioners from all over the country. So we've been able to broaden our church boundaries beyond the ability to be anywhere near Walnut Creek. Traffic's no longer a problem. And so that's been really wonderful. And I think I'll never not do, I hope to continue to do some sort of service online from now on. I don't know what that will look like, but it became very clear what was an afterthought. Like, we had this camera in the back of our sanctuary that picks up these sermons, and the camera was so bad. It was distracting. It was so bad. And that's how we were broadcasting our services. It's a completely different medium now. It's made me look at it from fresh eyes and say, what does it look like from a user's perspective? And how can I be connected with someone who isn't in the same room with me? You know, for example, I preach now a lot closer to the camera than I ever would have in the sanctuary, right?
It's so funny because I'm trying to get further away. Whenever I see my big mug on the screen, I said, I got to get that camera further away from myself.
Well, it's very intimate, and I'm right into someone's home too, like into whatever room they're in, and that I have to be really aware of that. That's been weird. Other ways that I think it's going to help our church, it's allowed education to be in a way that hadn't been before. The biggest problem with some of the education forums we do is timing. and getting back. Well, you guys have that driveway, right? Who wants to go down that driveway in the middle of the night, or even at 7 p.m.? And this allows you to have dinner with your family, sit down and do some sort of education forum right at your laptop or your computer or your TV. And that's been really incredible. And I think that's going to continue. We've been doing daily prayer. It became such a big thing in our parish that we've been doing Compline every day at 7. And I'm surprised we get 10 people every day. And that's just amazing, because normally when you host a midweek service, you get 3, right?
Right. Well, I think one of the things you just raised a little earlier was the threshold of time. And we had our executive board met last night, and we're putting together these cottage meetings, and it was really fascinating to me that in asking them what the threshold was to do what we wanted to do and to be concise and to the point, was 45 minutes.
Right.
And that's about how long our services are right now.
Right.
There may be even a little less than that. Of course, we don't obviously do the Eucharist and so forth. But when we return, depending on how we return, which is a huge question right now, the issue would be spacing, social distancing, and you can't do that with all the people. So if we end up doing, 4 settings, if you were, seatings, instead of 1, and kind of know who's coming to which one, kind of as a reservation level, always leaving room for, of course, visitors and stuff, but doing that means that we would have to do services maybe 30 minutes, because we'd be stacking them and spacing them in a way. So maybe it's keeping us from droning on and on in some of the things we do. You're right about that. It's kind of an efficiency that needs to be practiced.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, we have open intercessions, and that seems to be the biggest point of connectivity. And so that's really opened up our sense of prayer, is not using just a normal form in the prayer book, but having intercessions and having people come on and say what they want to pray for. And I think that, again, has been pinpointing to like why we gather. We gather to pray together.
Right.
We gather to listen to the word and to pray together, and to share what we're doing. That's been fun. I was thinking about the church at large, like, what is this, how is this shaping us as a faith community, and how we do services, and what will that look like? Will we continue to do Eucharist every single Sunday? I mean, I certainly miss it, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to think about what will be the next. The Episcopal Church has always been one to change with the time, and this seems to be another pivotal moment. So,
well, the other day I used you as an example in a book discussion group we had online when you preached about deciding to be ordained, but then going to the dean or whoever it was at the time and saying, what's the least amount I have to believe in order to be ordained? And I love that, because I think we're encumbered by all the doctrines, creeds, practices, traditions, liturgies, how we do them, where we do them, when we do them. And there's something vibrant about listening to this time and not trying to strive to push back to where we were, which can be exhausting, but to begin to attempt something new. How do you see, from what you know of St. John's, what do you see as our opportunities? Because I happen to embrace that section in the book of Revelations where it implies that there's a spirit for each church. There's a unique characteristic for each church, and the angels go through and say, this is what you're doing well, but this is something you should think about. And I like to think that we all bring some kind of dimensionality to what we do, and that we're all a little different. and we can utilize those differences and build on them. So what would your advice be to St. John's moving forward? What are our strengths that we can leverage?
You are a very brave and creative community. You're not afraid of being vulnerable in front of a larger community. I mean that in that I seem to remember like a Me Too Easter Vigil. That was a very brave service. I remember that in how we proclaim to have flaming Bibles, and that's okay in church. Our humor is very brave. Look me falling into hour. I'm still part of St. John's.
Always a part.
And so there's that aspect of St. John's that is a deep creativity and a deep connectedness, and it's all very brave. So my encouragement to St. John's would be to go out there and play with this, have fun with it, let it go, see what kinds of things can come out of it. You know, how do you do children's church? How do you do music? How do you live into this world? And you have a boss who's the master of tweeting, even though he doesn't have a Twitter account. He can make a statement in 1 or 2 sentences or less that sums up the whole thought. And so I think you ought to run with it and go with it. Be creative. I also think another charism of St. John's is their connectivity and how they root themselves not only in their relationships with each other, but the relationships in the greater of Oakland. One of the things that I've noticed in our church, and I think it's probably true in most Episcopal churches, is that we have a tendency to want to circle the wagons, make sure everybody in our community is okay before we look outwards. And my recommendation for St. John's in this time is to continue to look outwards, to always look outwards. So that you know not only how your community is doing, but how the larger community is doing right now. You know, I was in a meeting with Genesis not that long ago with Mary Lim Lampe, and she just brought up this idea, this thought that I just never occurred to me, like how many meetings, public meetings, are people not able to attend right now? How are decisions being made in the larger community? And I don't know, that's something else that St. John's is really good at and should continue to do.
Well, I'm also encouraged that we have opportunities to remain the broader church, and I'm so excited that you and Keller are going to work together on a children's outreach that you're already doing, and a storybook time that makes it very real for kids at home. And I think there's so much potential for us to work with one another. And I think you're right. Our natural tendency when there's a tragedy is to circle the wagons and say, is everybody okay? But I believe that if we begin working together as churches, we will find a new vibrancy and less parochialism. And so thank you for your willingness to share a ministry with us at this time. I'm looking forward to see how that turns out.
Yeah, it should be really exciting. So I guess there goes our ASA, right? One of the things that we're lucky that may never have to look back. It's an important marker, but how can you mark households? Who knows?
Exactly. How do you measure anything anymore? And that's, I suppose, has always been a spiritual question, not purely a metric kind of question. So, well, it's so great to see you as always. It's great to see you more often than not in terms of how we touch base. And I'm so grateful that you're nearby.
Me too.
I look forward to continuing to see you in the news, which we saw you in the news recently. That was wonderful. And so keep making the headlines, Krista.
Thanks. You too.
Okay.
If only I had like a little tweet action, maybe I can call you and say, okay, I need a quote.
I do enjoy short quotes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Krista, and send our wishes to St. Paul's, and
Of course.
we look forward to the future with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Scott.